All right, guys, we are officially live. Welcome to Bleav in Rams, part of the Bleav Network. Erin Coscarelli and USA Today's Tyler Dragon joining us. Be sure to do all of the things: subscribe, comment, rate, follow this podcast. You can catch us on Bleav TV, follow us on all the socials. Look, today is officially what? It is Friday. We have been playing this game of cat and mouse. And as we go live for you today, officially, Erin and Tyler Dragon with you, the news is officially official per Ian Rappaport, NFL Network insider, saying that the Rams and Matthew Stafford are officially working out a deal. Tyler Dragon, you've been working on this story. You're going to publish your article very soon. You're saying that this was all just sort of like some kind of cat and mouse game. Please update us. What is going on? Also, what's going on with my headset? Hold on. Let me redo that because you know what? We got to make these
Are we
clean
live?
edits.
You
We
can
got to make
redo
these
live.
clean edits for Okay, sorry, we are live, but also I want to make sure I get a clean cut for our producers because we are definitely going to repost this. What is going on in Los Angeles and what have we been through part of the Rams and media? It's been like a circus this whole week with Stafford potentially going to the Giants. I heard it was really close, a deal happening there. And then they said that Tom Brady and the Raiders were front runners. Tell us, please, Tyler, help us out.
So the story's already live, Erin. The story's live. We're live. It's published. I mean, I won't say that it was a done deal that Stafford was going to come back to Los Angeles, but I think it was just a leverage play. You look at where Matthew Stafford means to the Rams, and you look at the teams, the quarterback needy teams around the National Football League. It would have been a hard sell for Stafford to leave Los Angeles to go to the Las Vegas Raiders and play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs 2 times a year, Justin Herbert and the Chargers 2 times a year, or then to go to the New York Giants and play the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles in the same division as them and a rising superstar in Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. The only team that is really a playoff viable team that is in the quarterback market, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And even then, you're in the AFC North in a division that you're going to have to play in cold weather, and you're going to have to play, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow at least 4 times a year. So when you look at that and what Sean McVay said about Stafford at his end of the season press conference, you kind of knew that the two sides were going to get a deal done. And from where we are now, they're working on an extension where Matthew Stafford is among the highest 10 to 12 paid quarterbacks in the National Football League. When you look at his contract now, he's outside of the top 10. And he has no guaranteed money in 2026. So Stafford just wanted to be paid like one of the upper echelon top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and deservingly so. His play on the field warrants that. He's a Super Bowl champion and a Pro Bowl level quarterback. And you look what he did last season with pretty much a revamped Rams football team. And they were just a play away from defeating the Philadelphia Eagles, the eventual Super Bowl champions, in the divisional round. And if that game was sun shining and 50 degrees instead of snow on the ground, they might have won that game. So I think this was inevitable going to happen. I'm just glad that it happened sooner rather than later. So now for all the NFL teams that are in need of a quarterback, they can move on, and the Rams can certainly move on as well and construct their roster accordingly with Matthew Stafford behind center.
Okay, so we got to break this one down. This is really interesting because look, I think what we, the media, and of course Rams fans, were on pins and needles, and let's just break this all down because I think it's an interesting experiment in the way of the art of negotiation, right? You have a 37-year-old quarterback who's probably got a couple more good years left. It made sense that the Rams, as we were again, playing this cat and mouse game, trying to predict what was going to end up happening. We were following GMFB, Peter Schrager, every morning, sort of dropping these little tidbits with regards to discussions, because we know he has a very good relationship with Sean McVay. But here is what was really interesting. The Rams allowed Stafford to discuss his contract and his future with other teams, which I thought was really interesting. And we made this kind of joke on our previous episode. I made the point of like, it's like letting your girlfriend go out and test the market. Well, if she meets somebody better, now it might be hard to regain her trust and bring her back in the fold. So letting Stafford talk to the Giants, there was all this speculation, what he potentially could get over the course of a couple of years in terms of guaranteed money. But it didn't seem like exactly what you just said. A lot of that didn't make sense. For the Giants, they weren't a Stafford away from winning a championship. We saw what happened with the Aaron Rodgers experiment at another team in New York. Why would Matthew want to go to a New York market to deal with the New York media? The thing that made the most sense for me was going to the Raiders. But like you said, this is a guy that then has to contend with the AFC West, the players there, dealing with Mahomes twice a year. I wouldn't say I was counting it out and thinking that that was a ridiculous thought. I thought if there was a better team other than the Rams, the Raiders made sense with Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly. Of course, obviously you have Tom Brady up there. And then it's really close to home. It just seemed like to me, why are we where we're at? Why did this end up happening? Of course, Stafford wants to get paid in the $50 million club, and understandably so, but we know why the QB market is the way it is. It's not based really on talent, stats, and accolades. It's based on what quarterback is next up to get their payday. And with regards to Stafford, the Rams are very smart. I think the Rams were leveraging, hey, look, we've got Sean McVay. If Sean McVay can make wonders out of Baker Mayfield, maybe he can make wonders out of Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, or even Aaron Rodgers was in discussion. So I see Tyler right now. If you're listening, if you're not live with us, he kind of shook his head.
Yeah.
But you don't think that Sean McVay at any point was thinking outside the box, okay, if we don't have Stafford, we have to figure out who could fit next with us. I'm just curious if we can get a breakdown of why this ended up happening the way that it did. And what do you see in terms of, because, what I thought was really interesting was when Peter Schrager said on GMFB on Monday, he said, the Rams are not going to give him a pay bump. They gave him a pay bump last year. They're not going to do it again this year. Knowing how close of a relationship Schrager has with McVay, you don't think that Stafford's camp listened to that and was like, okay, cool, duly noted. This is a message being sent to every single NFL fan on a national network that, the Rams are not going to give him a pay bump per Peter Schrager. You don't think that Stafford's like, okay, duly noted, like that was a message to him?
I mean, I'm sure it was a message to him. And to answer one of your questions, I mean, every team has contingency plans. Sean McVay had some, and every team does it. And when you have a 37-year-old quarterback, you do have to start thinking about his heir apparent. And so the Rams are doing themselves a disservice if they're not doing that. However, with that being said, Stafford has shown, especially last season, that he still has plenty left in the tank. I wouldn't be surprised if he played into his early 40s or, retired at maybe 40 years old. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League last year. And in the playoffs, he was certainly among the best. Now, I do believe it was a leverage play for Stafford's camp, because when you look at Stafford's production on the field, the way he plays, the way the Rams are built, where they need a quarterback to help them win games and deliver balls in tight windows, especially when you had aging Cooper Kupp, who you are letting test the market, when you have an emerging star in Puka Nacua. But outside of those guys, I mean, Tyler Higbee was hurt for a lot of portion of the season. But your pass catchers, A lot of them are unproven besides the three guys I mentioned. So you need Stafford to kind of elevate the offense. The offensive line was in shambles at the beginning of the year. Stafford had to elevate that. Kyron Williams played well, but without a solid passing game, the running, you can stack the box and pretty much contain the ground game. So the Rams offense is built around Matthew Stafford's ability to throw the football and deliver balls and tight passes, those no look passes that he's accustomed to throwing that fans love. So it was a leverage play. Stafford is deserving of a contract that pays him amongst the top 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League. And I do Bleav once we see the numbers, he is going to be among that group because he's deserving.
Okay, so then how did that happen? Because again, just to quote what Peter Schrager said on Monday, he said the Rams are not going to give him a pay bump. Do you have any insight on where that money is going to come from?
Well, when you allow a quarterback and you tell his agent that they can test the market, I am almost positive. Now, I didn't get the exact numbers, but I'm almost positive the Giants, the Raiders were going to offer him a contract north of 40 million a year. Now, when you see that and your agent and staffers can't come back to you and say, okay, this is what my market is outside of Los Angeles, the Rams knew that and understand that, okay, we need to pay this quarterback like he is our franchise quarterback. And this money is going to come from Cooper Cup probably being released and us getting some salary back, us releasing maybe more players before the start of free agency and recouping some salary back. And to mention, the salary cap went up quite a bit this offseason. It's what, 279 million, if I'm not mistaken. So that also helped the LA Rams and negotiations with Stafford. So when you have all those factors coming to play, you can do salary cap gymnastics to get a quarterback like Matthew Stafford and to give him a nice little pay bump. And I do think when it's all said and done, there could be a little bit of a hometown discount. I'm sure the two sides are coming up with a deal where they're each happy with. That's why the numbers aren't. We know that the Rams announced that Stafford's coming back and it's all over, but the contract isn't finalized yet. They're still working on it as the time of this podcast because they're still trying to figure out the parameters and the framework of what this deal looks like. And to me, that also signals that Stafford is going to give them a little bit of a hometown discount because he does like being in Los Angeles. I mean, it's 70 degrees every day. I was just at Indianapolis, it was in the 30s. Nobody wants to be in the 30s in the December, January, and February, and March, and so on. So, yes, I do think, to answer your question, all those factors played into Stafford and the Rams coming up with an agreement or nearing an agreement.
Erin Coscarelli, Tyler Dragon of USA Today, breaking some news quite literally here on the podcast as we break down the decision that Stafford, Ian Rappaport, NFL Insider, reporting that the Rams and Stafford working out a deal, going to look like Stafford is in fact going to stay in LA when during Super Bowl, a lot of question marks regarding number 9's future and whether Stafford would, in fact, remain a Ram as we head into the 2025 season. Here's a good question as we are live right now on YouTube. Bro Chaco is asking, anyone know the final price? You just said you don't know that at this point. I don't think anybody knows, right?
No, they're still working out the particulars. I don't think the Rams and Stafford know at this point. They have an idea, a neighborhood, what they want, but the numbers aren't out yet.
Okay. I love this guy, Bro Chacho, is asking all the right questions because that was going to be my next point. Just because Stafford and Les Snead and company made a deal does not mean that this is over, because one of the things as we shift gears, in fact, if in fact number 9 does stay and Stafford stays, the Rams still need their heir apparent. Do you imagine, let's talk about sort of team needs for the Rams at this point. The combine is this week. Rams front office, although I don't think Les Snead and company are there this year in Indy. Obviously, representatives are there at the combine trying to figure out who could be somebody they potentially pick. Do you see this year, as we discuss Rams needs moving into this next season, do you see the Rams drafting a potential heir apparent this season behind Matthew Stafford?
I think it's realistic that they do. However, this quarterback draft class is not considered as strong. So a positive in that point is you may be able to get a quarterback where you think has a lot of potential in the later rounds, and you can develop him under Matthew Stafford, or you can wait till next year where the class is considered strong. When you have a Archie Manning and quarterbacks of that ilk, you can draft the quarterback early on in the draft in 2026. So I can see the Rams playing it both ways. They do need to draft the quarterback within the next 2 years, because wherever Matthew Stafford's deal is going to be, it's not going to be a long-term 5-year type contract. It's going to be a shorter term deal with a lot of money on the front end. So I do think they probably mull around the quarterback market, though, because Jimmy Garoppolo is not the answer. We've seen what Jimmy Garoppolo can do, and they will end up drafting a young quarterback sooner rather than later. I'm not ready to emphatically say yes in the 2025 draft, considering what this year's draft class at quarterback is. Very top heavy, and top heavy, I mean the Shador Sanders and Cam Ward, and then it's a fall off after that.
Well, but here's the thing that I'm just so curious about, right? I can't imagine that this doesn't feel very stressful year in and year out. We were here in the offseason last year with Stafford. Is this type of structure, when it comes to structuring this deal, is it like, are we going to be doing this every year with Stafford? Because they did it to us last year. We couldn't get any sleep. We were trying to figure out, is Stafford going to stay? Is he going to go? Put so much extra pressure on Les Snead and McVay when it comes to the draft. Is this going to be another sort of like 1 year? We'll reanalyze this again next year?
I would hope not. And I think both sides hope it doesn't lead to that as well, because, I mean, you don't want to go into another offseason and doing the same song and dance. And that, the Rams and Stafford, you can develop some animosity over that every single offseason. We're going through this same situation over and over again. So you have to learn from past history. Last year, it was kind of the same. This year, it probably got even uglier this year, would you say? And so if if the same situation happens again next year, it's probably going to be uglier than it was this year. So knowing from past history, I do think that this is going to be at least, at bare minimum, a 2-year deal with some guarantees in it, where none of us have to be in this situation next year where we're talking about Matthew Stafford's future, unless he's pondering retirement.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we move the ball forward, the Rams and their quarterback are looking to make a deal where Stafford does in fact stay in LA. They did give him permission to test the market. I had Eric Allen on yesterday, and he said, to find out your value, go out and see what you think you can get. And maybe it was a strategy move based on what the Rams know in terms of leverage, all the things that you said. He's got family of four daughters, all here in LA, having to uproot him to move to, a cold, balmy, wintry New York market. I bet you when brought that to his 5 women in his household, maybe not all of them were like, sure, jumping for joy. You have to wonder if all of that sort of played a factor in why Stafford wanted to stay. When you look at the team today, now that's sort of the biggest question mark leading into the next season is sort of answered with Stafford staying in LA. What is your next big question you have about this team when it comes to the Rams?
Got to solidify the offensive line. You have some free agents up front. You don't want to have a revolving door, especially with an older quarterback going into the season. Um, Certainly figure out the Cooper Cup situation. You already told him that he's no longer going to be part of the LA Rams. Are you going to trade him? Are you going to release him? Um, we see in the comments now, Rams fans want a receiver. they know they need a receiver opposite of Cooper Cup. I mean, opposite of Puka Nacua. So they need to upgrade this, out wide, and also on defense. One of the areas where I think the Rams need to upgrade is opposite of Jared Verse. Who's your other starting edge rusher? I would like to see them get a veteran in there and help out a young defensive line, a young promising defensive line. The defensive back room could be upgraded as well. I think that defense played better than expected last year. They have some bright moments, but then there are also some sore spots, especially in that secondary. So I will say O-line, receiver, edge, and DB this offseason for the Rams.
Yeah, that's certainly important. And also, Blake Corum got injured. Blake Corum was picked up in the 3rd round of last year's draft. I think they expected him to sort of, support and carry the rock in times when Kyren was getting overused or feeling tired. It feels like Blake Corum, we don't really know. I don't think, did we ever get to the bottom of why he was so sort of rarely used in the offense until late? And even when he was used later on, his numbers weren't phenomenal. So you have to wonder if they're going to look to either commit to Blake or look for somebody else to sort of support Kyren Williams, who's getting a lot of tread on his tires, even in the last couple of years. Guys, jump in and let us know your thoughts as Erin Coscarelli here with you alongside Tyler Dragon, reporting the breaking news that Matthew Stafford is in fact going to end up staying in LA. It looks like the Rams and their quarterback are trying to work out a deal after weeks of speculation. His camp given permission to talk to other teams. I mean, I was getting text messages yesterday, Tyler. I don't know if this was your experience, from Giants insiders saying, "Look, it's gonna go. He's going to New York. He's going to New York. It's confirmed." No, And then the Las Vegas Review Journal saying now Vegas is a front runner. You never believed any of that, huh?
No. So they were probably at the combine in Indianapolis. I can tell you, I was at the combine, and there are a lot of rumors that go around, wild rumors. Now, some rumors have some validity, and there's smoke in some places. And yeah, the Raiders, the Giants were interested, but I just thought to myself, it's almost like you're a veteran quarterback. You're 37 years old. You're in a situation where you are pretty much winning. You won a Super Bowl. You're in a comfortable situation. You're in LA, and you're going to go to a team that's rebuilding at the end of your career. Like, who? Not many people would do that. And now I get it. Money is a factor and might be the biggest factor in it all. But when you have a team in the Rams that and from what they're saying, they're motivated to pay you, but want to be at a comfortable number. I think that when there's talk like that, the two sides can come together and reach an agreement rather than the extreme where you go to a New York Giants where you're playing, you're literally trying to fight for relevancy. When you play against the Eagles, against the Commanders, and the Cowboys should be better next year. Or you go to the Raiders and the Raiders are not going to make the playoffs next year, Erin. I can tell you that. They're not going to make the playoffs. Like and the Giants aren't going to make the playoffs with unless they get Patrick Mahomes or somebody, they're not going to make the playoffs. So why would you go to teams like that when you, at the end of your career, to just be sub 500 or fight to be 500.
Yeah. No, and it seemed like the Rams knew that. And they were saying, hey, you know what? Go out there, find a better place. And
Mm-hmm.
all of that had to have played a part in Stafford because, like, that was why I was almost sort of like, am I being baited into this? None of it really made any sense because for me, it didn't feel like money mattered to Stafford. Yes, of course, you want to get it in a range that makes sense for your value. And he deserves to feel and be appreciated and valued where he's at. Now, with all that to say, how many times did Tom Brady, who has several Super Bowl rings, so many it's like he has too many. It doesn't fit in one picture, one thumbnail. He's posted photos of his many rings before. And, Brady's had to take sort of player-friendly deals to keep his team competitive. And I think, when thinking about weighing the choice of money or helping your team take it to the next level, it just felt to me that there was something more. It wasn't about the money. It was like maybe there was a relationship breakdown. I don't know if it had to do with the Cooper Cup thing. I mean, of course, we're just trying to see what sticks and what makes the most sense. But the fact that this lingered as long as it did, like as we're now, a couple days into the combine, it just didn't you feel like there was something that seemed more than just money for him?
Yeah, you look at Stafford and his family and what they have said the Los Angeles area means to them, how much they love the LA area. They've invested in the community. I mean, look what they did with when the wildfires were happening. They helped have buses transport fans to LA, to Glendale, Arizona, and you just Stafford's played long enough where he knows that he's made already a lot of money in this league. He just wants to be valued and paid close to his worth. And I believe when it's all said and done, it's going to be a team friendly deal, but a number comfortable enough where Stafford feels he's satisfied and he's compensated like a Super Bowl champion quarterback. And really, to go back to your previous question, the only team, honestly, that really concerned me was the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're the only playoff caliber team that may be in search of a quarterback if they don't sign Russell Wilson back or Justin Fields. Because one, you have an established head coach in Mike Tomlin, who's won a Super Bowl, one of the best coaches in the NFL. You have a really good defense, and you have solid offensive pieces
Playmakers.
and that you can continue build around. And you plug in Stafford in there, you can make a case that the Steelers are right up there with the Bengals, right up there with the Ravens in the AFC North. I mean, it'll be hard, but yeah. So that was a team that concerned me the most, but that was the team you heard the least about in this whole ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really hear the Steelers' name. I mean, you heard at the combine. I did hear them a little bit, but it was mostly the Raiders and the Giants and maybe the Jets, and the Steelers were way far behind. So I just never really thought he was going. It was going to be. I was going to be very surprised if I woke up one day and got a text or saw on the news or Twitter.
Tyler was cool, calm, collect. I mean, we were
Yes,
all stressed out over here. We were like,
I
what
would
is
have never.
happening? We need to get on the show and hurry up and post it, And I even posted something and had to delete it because, at this point, if the Rams didn't make a deal, it seemed based on some of my sources that like it was going to be the Raiders. But it was really interesting too, was I think the other thing for Stafford's camp is how many quarterbacks probably made calls or agents quarterbacks probably made calls to the Rams, right? One of them being Aaron Rodgers has a house here in LA, happy to probably partner up with a guy like Sean McVay. How many other potential free agent quarterbacks were like, you know what, I'll I'll slide into your DMs, Rams. I'll slide into your DMs and we can make it happen for a year. I'll bring up your next heir apparent, your next, regime. Because one of the things that was really interesting, and then I'm going to ask you about the combine and then we'll wrap this up. Sean McVay, you guys, was on the Fits and Wit podcast, and he said something that even Jordan Rodrigue of The Athletic has said all season long this past year. The Rams are in a tricky place identity-wise. Most of the roster is pretty young, and you have to infuse this talent, this veteran talent, with some of your guys that are a few years older, right? Stafford being one of them. So he's in a tricky place because he's not rebuilding. He's not reloading. He's almost sort of trying to figure out, how can I infuse the old with the new, right? The young with the veteran. And that had been an issue with them all season long. Now, being that, I want to say, entering the year this past season, they were the second youngest roster, all things that are good. That's a big tip to Les Snead figuring out how to draft pretty well. But as we look to the future, you have to make smart moves. And I know that Les Snead and Sean McVay are very well aware of how favorable LA is as a destination spot for several players, not just quarterbacks. Anyways, so let's wrap that up. Stafford, he's staying in LA. Per Ian Rappaport reporting, it's officially official. Be on the lookout. I think the article is already live. Tyler Dragon's article on USA Today. Is it live yet?
It was live when we started this show, Erin.
Okay, you got to check it out. USA Today. Of course, our insider, Tyler Dragon. So you were at the combine. Just give us a quick snippet of what that experience was like. I mean, I love Indy. Do you go check out all the restaurants there? What stood out to you? Not just the food, obviously, but what did you, boots on the ground? What was your big takeaway from your time there in Indy at the combine?
So yeah, St. Elmo's, the steakhouses, love them. I don't know if you know about Prime 47 too, but I frequented that place a lot as well. That's the after hour spot. But overall at the combine, work wise, the combine is a great place because most coaches and GMs are there in Indianapolis downtown is a very concentrated city, and everybody's like in very close proximity. So you get to see people from all over the National Football League, coaches, executives, owners, and so on. And everybody just talks to everybody, and that's why all these rumors go about. The coaches and GMs have their press conferences on Monday, Tuesday. Some have them on Wednesday. I think the Dallas Cowboys were the only team that spoke on Thursday. And it's open, available to the media. They answer pretty much all your questions for about 10 to 15 minutes. And you really get some insight in what teams are, doing this offseason. They're thinking, what maybe something they learned from this past season, what went wrong, what went right, some of the personnel things that they're pondering about doing. You get some really good insight from the combine. So that's why always this time of year, rumors fly around this combine heading into the new league year. And that was, I got a lot of that over this past week with not only the Rams, but teams all over the National Football League. Also, of course, the prospects coming in, the Cam Wards of the world, the Shedeur Sanders, they and Travis Hunter, those three players had the biggest crowds during their press conferences. I mean, probably bigger than any crowd I've seen at the combine, especially Travis Hunter. I mean, you would thought he was Michael Jackson up there with the amount of media members he had listening to his press conference. But I thought it was interesting about this year. I think there's a growing trend of players that aren't participating in the combine. Almost a lot of the top players, they are not competing in any drills. The top two quarterbacks aren't throwing at the combine. The top receiver isn't running routes at the combine. Travis Hunter, the top athlete, receiver, whatever, cornerback, is not competing at the training at the combine. So I think that's a growing trend. that the NFL might want to address. Obviously, it's these players' decision whether or not they want to, train at the combine or the pro day. But when you have more and more of your upper echelon players opting to compete at the pro day, then really the stuff on the field almost becomes obsolete because it's really about the middle tier, the second round and a later round prospects trying to showcase their skills instead of the first round prospects, because many of the first rounders don't uh, train at the combine in front of scouts. So I think that is interesting because it is a trend that is growing, and I think it's even more evident this year.
Right, and it's because at the pro day, it's a bit more favorable. It's their wideouts. They're throwing to. It's their
100%.
familiarity with the ground, with the field, all of those things. They tend to produce better numbers. That's interesting. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, guys, for you listening in, media loves going to to the combine in Indy because it has one of the best restaurant scenes you can imagine. So
Super Bowl's
uh
a little bit better. Like I won't Super Bowl's better. Aaron, Super Bowl's better though.
well, I mean, food wise, of course, because it was in New Orleans. But I'm saying the media enjoys Indy. One of the reasons why I love going to the combine is it's not quite as much of a scene. There's not
Hmm.
as much media. There's not as many fans, obviously. So it's a little bit more intimate. And then, of course, I'm all about the food. I'm all about the food and the good libations. So good drinks, good food at Indy for the combine. Tyler Dragon, check out his article. It's live on usatoday.com regarding the whole Stafford news. I mean, what a week we had. Of course, that's Tyler for you. He was like a famous track athlete back in his day. So he's cool, calm, collected. I'm over here. I'm the frenetic one of this on camera relationship. But that's a wrap for us. I mean, Stafford stays in LA. Good news. It feels like Victory Monday over here in LA. It's a Friday. News coming out. Eventually, we'll break down the contract. But I appreciate sort of an understanding of what ended up happening with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. We'll keep you guys posted. That's it for us. Bleav in Rams. Tyler, thank you again for jumping on. Appreciate it.
Happy Victory Friday.
Victory it is. It is a victory indeed. Number 9, Stafford stays with the Rams. I feel good about it as I head into a busy weekend. You have any fun plans, Tyler?
Sleep.
Good. Yep. Smart man. All right. Bleav in Rams. That's a wrap for us. Make sure to, thanks for joining us. You guys had some really good points. Bro, Chichacho, you're amazing. David, thank you for joining. Daniel. All right, you guys, stay tuned. Another episode coming in hot next week. Erin, Coscarelli, Tyler Dragon. We'll see you next time.